but if they did that with Obama, what was the actual treason? Like, what is she stating is treason?
Well, so now I don't think she said treason. I don't think legally that's technically right. But someone might correct me on that. Maybe it's sedition or something. I don't know. I mean, like, I think treason. I think John Brennan did commit treason when he armed Al Qaeda in Syria, and Obama as well, with the rest of Obama and John Kerry and Brennan. I think that's literally treason, right? Giving aid and comfort to the enemy in a time of war. What Obama and Comey and Clapper did to Donald Trump is they framed him for treason. So what do you call that exactly? Framing the sitting U.S. president?
Barack Obama believed that his smooth presence and carefully measured delivery would set him apart when he stepped into the spotlight. Joe Rogan, however, strips away that shine to show what's underneath. His humor doesn't just poke fun at Obama's speeches, it dismantles the entire show. That's the magic of comedy. Every timed pause, every raised grin, and every self-satisfied glance uncovers the act for what it really is. Just a spotlighted stage with nothing left to hide.
This is the accusation. They're throwing around the word treason.
I hate to say this, but President Barack Obama, there is now incontrovertible evidence that he was the spearhead of a seditious conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people and overthrow the United States government back in 2016.
They're saying that Obama knew that Russia did not meddle in the election, did not have any impact in the election.
Rogan calls out the emptiness behind that famous Hope poster. He points to the irony of a man relying on the same old Washington playbook while selling himself as something brand new. To Rogan, Obama resembles a UFC fighter stepping into the cage with flashy gloves, spotless shorts, and a carefully protected record, only for promoters to watch him collapse in the very first round. Rogan insists the media kept pushing a story that simply wasn't real. And when the spotlight hit, the so-called main event faded the moment the fight began.
When they gave that speech, when he gave a speech on television, and everybody was like, fuck this. And then they it kind of just went away.
It was one of the most beautiful moments in modern American history. People really actually stood up and stopped a war from happening.
Today, I authorize the Armed Forces of the United States to begin a limited military action in Libya in support of an international effort to protect Libyan civilians.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the bell icon and subscribe to the channel. Rogan highlights the contradictions. Obama often called himself a man of the people, yet he left office with a massive Netflix contract, a $65 million book deal, and luxury homes on the shores of Hawaii and Martha's Vineyard. Rogan can't help but laugh at the absurdity. Someone living in an estate large enough to host a UFC event still clinging to the image of a small-town organizer. The punchline cuts deep. Obama didn't walk away to escape duty. He stepped down to cash in on it.
Can I get a glass of water? I'm serious. I'm thirsty. Can I get a glass of water? This is not a prank. You never seen it?
No.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Oh,
it's amazing.
no.
He gets a glass of Flint tap water, and I swear to God, he drinks it like this.
Problem
He's
is solved?
bullshitting the world. Watch this.
Can I get some water? I really did need a glass of water. This is not a stunt.
Usually when something isn't a stunt, you have to say
It's
that.
100% a stunt. When was the last time a president stopped a speech to ask, can I get a glass of water?
Obama's obsession with being seen as cool runs through the entire roast. Rogan paints him as the guy who already knows he's on the exclusive after-party list, yet still shows up with rolled sleeves and a cigarette, pretending he's just another face in the crowd. For years, Obama has been praised as a skilled leader, someone who could command applause, shape perception, and control the room's rhythm. But Rogan strips the act bare. What looks effortless on the surface crumbles because the performance is too heavy to hold itself up. And that's why it feels hollow.
You look at the policies and the attacks on whistleblowers and drone strikes and all the other shit that happened during that administration and the coup in Russia, and like there's a lot that's from a foreign policy perspective that's very similar to what George Bush was doing. But what they were doing was highlighting social justice issues that came about during his administration, largely obscured the fact that the foreign policies were very similar to what George Bush was.
Then comes Obama's legacy, which Rogan treats like a poorly edited highlight reel. Guantanamo Bay never closed, drone strikes ramped up, and under a maze of healthcare rules, exemptions, and premiums, many were left wondering if their doctor's office even counted as covered. Unlike a policy analyst, Rogan doesn't bog down in details. He knows comedy lands harder when reality sets the stage. So instead, he points to Obama's Nobel Peace Prize, handed to him by admirers abroad before he'd even broken a sweat, mocking it as less a recognition of achievement and more like a preseason participation trophy.
Absolutely must hold every one of these criminals accountable for the crimes that they committed. They are the most heinous crimes committed in American history.
But yet promoted this idea.
James Comey, John Brennan, Clapper, Rice, Biden was in the meeting. They briefed Barack Obama on Hillary Clinton's plan to, quote, tie Trump to Russia collusion lies. It consumed our national discourse for 5 years.
And then there's been some incredible clips of all these different news reporters, CNN and MSNBC, just saying over and over and over again, clear evidence of Russian collusion.
Rogan thrives on pointing out hypocrisy, and with Obama, the material never runs out. Here was a man who campaigned on openness, yet left behind an even bigger surveillance system. He claimed to stand against big money in politics while raking in more from Wall Street than almost anyone before him. The leader who said he'd fought countless battles simply added more, always wrapped in polite words and a warm smile. Rogan doesn't need to invent anything. The contradictions are already dressed in a suit and tie. To him, Obama is like a motivational speaker selling tickets with slogans like hope and change, only to walk away with the payday while the crowd is still jobless. That's why Rogan insists Obama's speeches weren't inspirational, they were infomercials.
Did it, where he repeated that lie about Donald Trump talking about white supremacists, saying they're very fine people on both sides. Let's play it.
Said that there were very fine people on both sides of a white supremacist rally.
You had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay?
That's crazy. I have never seen.
Rogan takes aim at the cult of personality that surrounded Obama. He mocks how the former president became less a politician and more a brand, sold through t-shirts, hashtags, and bumper stickers. In Rogan's view, pop culture swallowed politics whole. Obama was like the iPhone, sleek, flashy, and expensive, but quickly replaced when the next model dropped. And even when the product broke, people clung to the box. Rogan's roast cuts through that worship, pointing out the absurdity of treating a president like the latest sneaker release. Then comes the post-presidency. Rogan ridicules Obama's celebrity appearances, his Spotify podcast, and those carefully staged photos where he looks fascinated by ordinary life. Healthcare doesn't escape either. Rogan compares the Affordable Care Act to a discounted gym membership. You pay double the price and still only get access to half the equipment.
Is that the 2011 thing where Obama allowed people to use propaganda against United States citizens?
Hillary Clinton is and has been an outstanding public servant.
What was done then under Obama, effective repeal of it, was called the Smith Modernization Act.
She was a great Secretary of State for me.
At the time, the media and media control was seen as the linchpin crux of winning the Cold War, piping in pro-U.S. media influence.
Obama's promise of simple, affordable insurance collapsed into a maze of paperwork and fine print. So confusing that by the time you finally made it to the dentist, you still weren't sure if your plan even covered the chair you were sitting in. The irony, Rogan suggests, is that Obamacare functioned less like genuine reform and more like a government-backed illusion where the entire country unknowingly played along. Rogan also pokes fun at Obama's obsession with being cool, pointing to the March Madness brackets and endless playlists. To him, it felt like the administration was more focused on curating a summer soundtrack than addressing the steady decline in middle-class wages. He jokes that Obama probably spent more time debating which Kendrick Lamar track to feature than figuring out policies to actually help struggling families. Even Obama's signature phrase, "Let me be clear," becomes comedy gold. Rogan highlights how what followed was almost never clear at all. In that dramatic delivery, the pointed finger, the rolling cadence gets stripped bare. Rogan imagines a stand-up comic trying the same tactic, dragging every punchline out for so long that the audience heads for the exit before the joke even lands.
Volume and go full screen.
What you know now, do you wish you had a third term? You know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony, I'd be fine with that.
We know he wasn't really running the country.
Yeah.
we used to think he was actually running the country, and now they're like, no, he didn't even see those executive orders. That was all auto.
The irony isn't lost on Rogan. He comes from a modest background himself. Obama in many ways did too, but his entire brand was built on turning that story of uniqueness into something marketable. Meanwhile, the same battles raged on. The money kept flowing. Lobbyists didn't skip a beat. The only real shift was in the packaging. The fury of the Bush years was swapped out for the calm surface of the Obama era. Beneath it all, little had changed. To Rogan, it's the greatest marketing trick in modern politics. Just repaint the same old house, hang a shiny new sign, and suddenly it's sold as a mansion. And throughout the roast, one theme keeps surfacing. Obama wasn't just a president, he was a salesman. Every grin, every gesture, every carefully chosen phrase was a pitch. He wasn't selling policy, he was selling himself. The world bought in. He mastered the game, made more money than ever before, and dressed up old politics in fresh, trendier clothes. Rogan casts him not as a statesman, but as a motivational speaker, someone who cashed in, left the stage, and left the audience debating whether the performance really changed anything, even as many still argue about whether he saved democracy.
Strongman or steelman. I'm saying, like, would it be possible that Obama knew something that he could relay to them in the meeting?
Be an interesting thing to find. You know, that'd be interesting for a court proceeding.
But even if that's the case, it still doesn't align with the known facts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which is
a
problem.
Yeah. Well, it's not. Look, I think we'll see what comes of this. You know, which I'm not betting on anything coming of this, but there is something interesting. Look, there's a lot of things that happen after that. The real, to me, the true outrage of Russiagate is that they...
And that's where the roast stings the most. Obama wasn't the figure he claimed to be. Rogan tears through the charm, the polished cadence, and the carefully staged photos, exposing a legacy built less on progress and more on presentation. What's left is a sleek marketing campaign, a brand that promised change but mostly recycled old memories. Rogan doesn't stop with the easy shots. He points out that Obama's myth rests largely on being the first. Strip away the symbolism, though, and you're left with another politician moving in lockstep with the system. To Rogan, it's like a movie trailer with a catchy tagline, but no real film behind it. It's like the contradictions fuel some of his sharpest lines. He mocks the idea of bombing a nation into independence, comparing it to smashing your neighbor's car windows and then handing him a bus ticket as if you'd done him a favor. The image is both brutal and funny, capturing the absurdity of a president celebrated for diplomacy while leaving destruction smoldering in his wake.
Obama murdered American citizens with no charges. 2 of them, at least. That is illegal. That is very clearly illegal.
You're talking about drone strikes.
Yes, it was
suspected.
Well,
terrorists.
it was Anwar al-Awlaki and his son. Now, with the son, who was like 14 or 15, they came back and killed him a few weeks after they killed the father. Now, I believe they claim he was not the target of the drone strike, like that he was just collateral damage.
Then there's the drone program, hardly the cool image that defined Obama. Rogan ridicules the contradiction. A president celebrated for running a PlayStation-style war where civilians became collateral damage, yet also praised for slow jamming the news with Jimmy Fallon. The absurdity, Rogan says, is undeniable. A Nobel Peace Prize winner endorsing joystick killings. And because Obama smiled through it, people called it leadership. Anyone else would have been branded a war criminal. The roast then turns to the economy. While Obama's fans boast about recovery, Rogan zooms in on the fine print. Wall Street thrived, but Main Street was still underwater. The humor sticks because people would rather forget the reality they lived through. The media, meanwhile, was infatuated. Rogan skewers how journalists gushed over Obama's workouts, his fashion, even his playlists. A viral video of him dunking a basketball was treated as proof of leadership. Rogan laughs at the silliness of believing a layup qualified someone to handle Middle East peace talks. The punchline cuts deep. Journalism stopped being watchdog reporting and turned into cheerleading, with reporters writing fan fiction instead of holding power accountable.
Every day, Trump-Russia collusion.
And many of those same people are still telling you what's true. Many of those same people are still in front of a camera telling you what's true.
Yeah,
and
they're
never
still
apologize.
That's right. Then they're the same ones up there going, we got to arm Ukraine till the end. We got to give Israel more bombs to drop on the Palestinians.
Are they even covering this? Like, how is MSNBC handling this Tulsi Gabbard revelation?
Or I think by changing their name to MS Now.
Rogan also calls out the irony of Obama's 8 years in politics, deeply entrenched in the game, yet always pretending to float above it. Every grin was perfectly timed, every gesture rehearsed, every line polished. He wasn't distant from Washington, he was mastering it. Rogan compares him to a magician who openly palms cards, but insists there's no trick. The act only worked because the crowd wanted the illusion to be real. What fascinates Rogan most is that Obama still lingers over American politics like a ghost. Even out of office, his shadow hangs in every debate. Rogan jokes that he's like the high school graduate who keeps showing up at prom, pretending he's just there to help, while quietly slipping back into the spotlight. The joke lands because it's true. Obama never really left. He's still out there coaching, commenting, shaping the narrative. Rogan strips away the myth of the revolutionary leader. Instead, Obama looks like a brand ambassador for a system that never really changed. Rogan doesn't paint him as a monster. He paints him as something worse, ordinary. Not the media's golden icon, not his supporters' messiah, but just another politician cashing checks, playing the game, and smiling for the cameras. And that's where the roast cuts deepest. When the myth crumbles, only the man is left, someone who spent his career selling an image, and thanks to Rogan, that illusion refuses to disappear.